Welcome to ontopicretro, episode 10. I'm John Cummins, and joining me tonight is Eric from the All In podcast.
How are you
How are you
doing,
doing?
sir? Thank you for having
Oh,
me.
yeah, I'm doing great, man. Glad to have you on finally. I've had Seth on, and we had a blast talking about Donkey Kong 94, so I guess it's your turn to come on and talk about some Super Bomberman with me.
Oh, I'm down. Donkey Kong 94. I can vouch. Quality game there. Quality
Oh,
game.
yeah, I we narrowed it down, and I think it's got to be it's at least in my top 3 Game Boy games.
Yeah, absolutely. That blew my mind because I had no clue the first time I played it. I had no clue. I just thought it was a straight arcade port, like I'm sure the vast majority of people did. But you get in, you beat the first, those 4 stages, like, oh, well, that was a fun little, oh my God, what's happening right now?
Yeah, you get the little cutscene. You're like, man, I don't remember this, and then it just throws you
Exactly.
into a whole nother game.
So
Sure.
great. But we're not here to talk about Mario and Donkey Kong. Not here to talk about Donkey Kong 94. We're here to see how many times we can get away with using this game as a blast puns.
This is true because this is definitely a blast from the past at that.
Yes. We need a
Uh,
counter.
yeah. Oh man, we'd probably fill it up.
Probably
Uh,
would.
this game is definitely something special. I I played this game almost endlessly for probably I don't know at least 4 or 5 months of I can't remember what year it was in the '90s. I don't know if I played it right when it first came out, but it wasn't much longer afterwards. But it didn't take long for me and my buddies to realize that this was like the ultimate party game of that time. Like
Oh, yeah.
you could hook up 4 controllers and we would just go at it all night playing Bomberman.
See, that's the thing is like, it was a Super Nintendo game that was 4 player. And a lot of people, especially probably newer, younger gamers, be like, but I thought the Super Nintendo only had 2 controller ports. Oh, you sweet summer child, let us tell you about the multi-tap.
That's right. This was, I believe, the first 4 player game to come to the Super Nintendo. Since it was
I'm
sold
not
with
aware of one
the
before it. Yeah.
yeah, I think since it came with the multi tap, and it was as far as I know, that was the only way to get the multi tap whenever it first released. So you would have had to buy. I mean, at that time, you didn't need a multi tap because this would have been the first game, so it all made sense to be packaged in. I meant to look it up. I don't have this exact, but I do know that the multi tap has like a Hudson Soft logo on it as well. So I think it was like designed by Hudson Soft and everything. So they kind of introduced this peripheral to the Super Nintendo, and then that would usher in several other multiplayer games that were more than 2 players to the system.
Yeah.
So
Well, I mean, Bomberman it fits that 4 player. I mean, it just fits for 4 player because, as far as I'm concerned, Bomberman is one of those franchises that just nailed the gameplay right out of the gate. There's few franchises that have functionally really never changed their core gameplay since the first installment. I think probably the best example of this is something like Tetris
yeah,
that
I mean
just right
puzzle
out the
games.
gate, exactly, just right out the gate, knew exactly what it was, and the core gameplay has really only added different gimmicks here and there. But Bomberman, similarly, in its first couple iterations, I think many people's first experience with it was on the NES or the Famicom. And honestly, even the newer games like Super Bomberman R on the Nintendo Switch, it plays exactly the same as the old NES game.
Yeah, I
But
think
having
they
it,
learned their lesson with some of those polygonal entries to the series, not sticking to the exact formula.
yeah, a couple of those 64-bit entries, kind of stuff.
Yeah,
They were trying to figure some stuff out. I respect them for that.
yeah,
But on the NES, obviously, 4 player multiplayer wasn't a viable option. But it was just a game that lent itself to having more than 2 people on screen. So finally being able to do that on the Super Nintendo was such a godsend.
yeah. I mean, with the NES, you did have like the satellite They would allow you
Yeah.
to play 4 players, but I don't remember the original Bomberman even having multiplayer. It might have had a multiplayer mode, but I don't remember it offhand. And then I think
Maybe it was just my GBA version, the NES Classics.
it could have been, yes. And I think Bomberman 2, which is pretty hard to get for the NES,
Yeah.
had multiplayer, but I think it was only 2 players. I don't think they had tapped into using the satellite for that. So, this would have been a relatively new concept for Bomberman. And even, I mean, the NES had the satellite, but not a lot of games use 4 players on NES.
Yeah.
Even
And and
Ninja
I'm not a cool
Turtles.
kid. I've never actually seen one that used that functionality. I'm not, I guess I'm not cool enough.
We had a satellite. It's kind of funny that the first satellite we had, my cousin and I, we got at a yard sale, and it didn't have the plug-in port for the system itself. It just had the satellite part. So we were put batteries in this thing, got all excited, plugged our controllers in it, didn't understand that they had to have a way to communicate with the NES, and we didn't have that part. So we were kind of like dumbstruck trying to figure this out. And then later on, we bought another one at a yard sale or something, and it had everything, and we were like, "Oh, this makes sense. How was this ever supposed to work?" But yeah, no, like I was saying, even the uh, Turtles arcade game, which you think would be perfect for 4 players, didn't have 4 players. You could still only play with 3 turtles if you had the any kind of multi controller option available to the NES. So yeah, playing 4 players on the NES just wasn't. I don't think was something that was ever intended to happen. Just so yeah, this is definitely a really cool deal, and I remember as soon as this came out, like it just exploded. If it was a 2 controller system, like everybody had multi taps coming out. PlayStation had them. There was a
Yep.
Sega version.
Yep.
Um, so yeah, this definitely was cool beans as a kid.
That was the closest thing that we had to a LAN party back in the day. It was a
Yes.
multi-tap.
Yeah, you had to hope you either had to have the multi tap or knew a buddy that had one and hope he remembered to bring it. Otherwise, you were just playing 2 players.
Exactly. Yeah, we were still a couple years removed from some of the more iconic multiplayer games of the '90s. Stuff like GoldenEye and stuff like Mario Kart. At
Oh
least
yeah,
Mario Kart 64. But there were some absolute party classics on the Super Nintendo. I think a lot of people just kind of immediately go to something like the original Super Mario Kart or something like fighting games, Mortal Kombat, Killer Instinct. A little game called Street Fighter you may have heard of. But when it came to 4 player multiplayer games, I mean, honestly, as far as I'm concerned, Bomberman was the 4 player online multiplayer game, or online, the 4 player multiplayer game for the Super Nintendo.
it was, and we played it quite often that way. It's, but I mean, Bomberman itself, just like today, you could play with 8 players.
Yep.
If you're playing Super Bomberman R, which is just bonkers. If you've ever played an 8 player match like
I
online,
have.
it is insane. Those maps are not near big enough for 8 players. It feels
They
like a lot of
really
times.
aren't. They really aren't. Cool gimmicks. Cool gimmicks on Super Bomberman are, and
Oh yeah,
it's nice to have something other than the classic Battlefield, which is still nice to have. But yeah, those. That's one of the reasons that I really enjoyed Super Bomberman R online, is because they were able to spread people out a little
yep,
bit. It was a battle royale game that is currently on. They're going to take it down because they're basically re-releasing it with Super Bomberman R2.
yep.
But I do think that Bomberman, the way it's set up, I do think it works best with 4 players on screen.
4 players, one in each corner.
Yep.
It's kind of how it was meant to be. But yeah,
So it
so
is, and so shall it ever be.
that is correct. So as far as your experience with the game, did you play this one quite a bit as a kid? Just Super Bomberman?
I had a couple friends who had it. I actually never had the multi tap. Uh, it was kind of one of those things where there was only a couple people that you knew that had the multi tap. It was those neighborhood kids, those kids.
Yeah,
Uh,
V
and
kids.
Yeah, and I wasn't one of those kids that everybody would come over and play the games at, but I knew a couple people, and occasionally I would be able to go over but I would play the mess out of that. We played mostly in multiplayer. We did play, we weren't super good, so we couldn't get too far into the story mode. And frankly, ever since I saw the second level boss, I was like, I don't ever want to play this ever again. Anyway,
Yeah.
that might be
Yeah.
why I'm afraid of clowns.
Yeah, I decided to throw the picture of every one of the bosses in the notes so we'd have a good memory of all these guys when we were going to talk about it. But yeah, when you're a kid and you're playing this game, it's kind of hard to remember, single player even being there because the multiplayer was where it was at. The
Yeah.
single player was fairly okay for Bomberman, but most people were just there to play multiplayer because that was where the meat and potatoes of the game was. It seemed like.
It was cool because you got to blow stuff up. I
Yes.
mean, what that was the coolest thing as a kid. You got to blow stuff up and you got to pick up more power-ups and you got to blow stuff up even more. And there was something just on a primal level that is just so interesting about Bomberman to me is because the more powerful you get, the more of a danger you are to yourself as well.
The more powerful you get and the faster you get
Yeah.
is you can get to a point where you're so fast that you're overrunning,
Yeah.
things you didn't mean to, and you run into explosions. So it's kind of a double edged sword to collect all those speed ups whenever you're
Yeah.
playing
Yeah, I stop at like speed level 6 or 7 now. If any more speed power ups pop up, I just avoid them or I just blow them up.
or blow them up. Yeah, and kind of the funny thing, I don't think a lot of people really think of Bomberman as a puzzle game, but essentially it has a lot of the same mechanics of like a puzzle game. Like when you think about it, I think it started, especially just regular Bomberman, when you look at it at its core, it really started as like a Pac-Man map. To when you look at it, like there's the maze portion of it, the blocks that you can't blow up, and
Hmm.
then there's blocks that you can blow up. And whenever you look at it, that's kind of the visual that you get. So I have to kind of think that whenever the original game was being developed, like this was probably developed to be a maze game, and it just kind of took off and became a multiplayer game out of nowhere.
It's like they just forgot completely about Load Runner. Just forget Load
Yep,
Runner just completely
they
because
did.
this was actually something we covered on our show recently, as a matter of fact. But for those who don't know, canonically, the main character from Load Runner is Bomberman.
Yep, that is correct. I don't know that in the later games they even bother with making that connection, but yeah, in
They
the
don't.
early days, that was the story a lot of times for Bomberman. Um, Whenever you would go through the single player modes on the game.
And frankly, it honestly surprises me that they uh, even attempted a story in the single player for Super Bomberman, and it's noticeably bonkers.
It is. It's one
I
of those that like it could have just not had a story at all. They could have just
Yeah,
set it up and say, "Hey, you're trying to get through this maze, and there's a guy at the end that wants to take you out."
yeah,
But
because
they shot it down.
the individual levels in Super Bomberman, and frankly for the entire Bomberman series on the Super Nintendo / Super Famicom, they were just like the multiplayer maps. They were just single screen maps. You blow up all
Yep.
the enemies, you go on to the next one. The problem is if you were even slightly competent at the game, which I would eventually become, once you get a few power ups, the enemies in that game do not keep up with your level of power whatsoever.
No, they don't. I mean, basically, the only uh, challenge from the level itself, if you've taken out some of the enemies, is if you accidentally bomb the exit and it just showers more enemies down on you. So you have to
Exactly.
take care of that. But I mean, other than the bosses, the enemies don't really pose much of a challenge. They're usually just kind of on they run a route. A lot of times they don't even have like um, their
AI.
own, yeah, their own AI. A lot of times they're just set on a track and they just kind of do their own thing. So it's, I mean, and they can easily get stuck between blocks until you let them out, and then you can just kind of blow the block that's holding them in, and then set a bomb immediately back down. And you'll usually take them out. So it's definitely
That
not
was
the high point of the game.
It's not, but there is something. At least for me, there was always something satisfying about just how much noticeably powerful you become just after picking up a few power ups. It's, there's so many other multiplayer games out there that if you do wind up getting any type of capability, it might be temporary or it might just be an incremental increase to your capabilities. But when you grab a few power ups, like that can, RNG can absolutely win you the game or lose
Yeah,
you the game because of
it
how
could.
powerful those power ups can get.
This is a game that I kind of wonder if, I've never really looked into it that much, but I wonder if there's like a pro level community playing this game. Because if so, I'd like to just watch. Like, I don't want to participate. I'll just get destroyed instantly. But I would like to watch the craziness of, a bunch of high level players playing this game, because at some point even I would consider myself an amateur at this game, but even at some point, like, I'm starting to pick up that after each incremental power up for your bombs you pick up, you start learning how many blocks lengthwise that they go. And you start like placing them and you're like, okay, I need to get like 6 blocks down because that's how far my blast radius is. So I can only imagine like going through this and like picking up the max power and like just working your way up or whatever, and having to remember all that stuff while taking on, up to 8 players, and remember how fast you are and all those things. There's just so much going on at any point in time that could change so many things. If you get the little skull power up, it's a random bag of garbage that you don't want.
Yeah, definitely blow those up when you see them.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's honestly another thing that I like about the game is if you truly understand what your capabilities are and what your blast radius is, when you're going up against human players, you can actually start to funnel them. You can start to force them into other parts of the map, which means that you can, at that point, there's actual strategy. A lot of people just kind of run around and just, mash the button to put as many bombs down as they can and then just try to find a safe spot. But when you're talking about like a Bomberman noob versus somebody who understands the game, like there can be a really quick divide in terms of the skill gap in this game, and it is nuts to see somebody who, especially once you get like some of the kick power ups and the punch power ups, and you can move the bombs once you put them down, your capabilities can go from boring basically to absolutely explosive very quickly. And by the time a lot of those rounds are done, it's just like the entire screen is just red with explosions at that point.
Oh yeah. By the time the whole map's cleared out and everyone has all the power ups that are available, it's usually not very much longer after that, and people are just getting evaporated left and right if the one person that has all the power ups knows what they're doing.
But it's still so much fun. It's still very simple.
Oh yeah.
Even now, it's still very simple, but it's still there's still something about it. At least for me, I know Bomberman isn't really a super marquee franchise anymore, but it's just so satisfying. It's always been so satisfying for me. I know that I'm in the vast minority of people who was super excited at the announcement of Super Bomberman R2 at this past partner direct that Nintendo held at the end of June, but I was really excited for it just because I get to jump back into this gameplay.
Oh yeah. I'm hoping they put out a physical version of that game. It'd be nice to put on the shelf next to the other one.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, no, Bomberman's definitely, it's almost the exact description of, the saying, easy to learn, hard to master.
Yeah.
Because anyone can get in there and start playing, and the power ups are pretty easily understandable. Just by looking at them, you can understand what they do, and you learn all those ins and outs really quick. But it's definitely the learning the strategy of the game and learning how to get people into places that they aren't comfortable in being. really quickly is the name of the game. So it just fits that description exactly.
And honestly, kind of like with mini golf, whereas the worse you are, the more fun it can be. Uh,
Yeah.
Bomberman, Bomberman, honestly, for me, is if you just get a lot of people that have no clue what they're doing, I'll probably be in stitches within minutes just watching four people run around the map like chickens with their heads cut off, all just trying to just drop bombs, attempting to try to get a kill on
Oh yeah.
something. And just
That's that's my kids playing. I'll watch them. They'll, I'll hop out after I'm done. Just destroying them. In my house, we don't let people win, but I'll get done destroying the kids, and I'll hop out and I'll just watch them trying to figure out how to do what I just did. And and they're all just running around going crazy. And usually, my daughter playing Super Bomberman R, my daughter's like method is that she'll die early, like she'll blow herself up, and then she just has fun in the little gunner
yep.
on the outside of the map and just trying to kill everyone else.
Yeah, I think it's been a while since they've had that. Was that in Bomberman R? I can't even remember. I
Yeah, it
don't
was in
know.
Bomberman R.
It was. I
Yep.
guess I just didn't die enough. But
Yeah, I think
yeah, that was.
Super Bomberman thing, but I can't remember which Super Bomberman it was introduced in. I don't know if it was in this game or not.
Now that you mention it, I can't remember. I know that like the little riding buddy. I'm pretty sure that was introduced on the Saturn, and
That
that
was
wasn't in these games.
Bomberman 90. Well, actually, that was introduced on the. Uh, well, I can't remember. I'd have to look at it, but I know it was on Super Bomberman 3, which would have been 93 for the Saturn, or 94, one or the other.
Yeah, because this one of the first Super Bomberman was in '93. Um, I don't. There's. It's crazy. It's hard to remember because there were a lot of people don't remember this. There were actually 5 Super Bomberman games on the Super Nintendo / Super Famicom. There were 5 Super Bomberman titles. Yeah, it was like the Mega Man of the 16-bit era. Just every 9 months or so, just another one. And it makes sense. Admittedly, it makes sense because it's such a simple gameplay premise, and I'm sure they reused a lot of assets.
Oh, the whole thing was probably reused. They just added the chain. It's probably more in tune. Each number, each sequel is probably more in tune to like how Street Fighter handled patching the game.
Yeah,
in reality, it's like
that's fair.
not like 6 to 9 months. They were like, oh well, we want to add this mechanic because this is something we wish we would have had in the first one, but didn't think of it at the time. So here we go. Here's Super Bomberman 2, and here's 3. I know for sure that the riding buddies. As far as Super Nintendo or Super Famicom's related, they were introduced in number 3, and I have that one on the Super Famicom. I know they were in the Saturn version, but I can't remember which year that came out in, and if the Super Famicom one was first. So I'd have to look it up.
See, that's the thing is there's for a game series that it flies under so many people's radars, it surprises a lot of people to know there's like 60, 70 games in the Bomberman franchise at this point. There's a ludicrous number of Bomberman games out there. Probably even like there were games being released before the NES.
So yeah, Super Bomberman was released in '93, like we were talking about, in all regions. Japan got it April 28th. We got it in September. In Europe, had to wait until November 20th to get their hands on it, which is a little bit of a wait. And Super Bomberman is a spin-off of the original Bomberman franchise, also known as Dynablaster for a short period of time in the UK. And there was even a port to the MSX over in the UK called Eric and the Floaters.
That is a good name.
Yeah, if you see that box art, it's hilarious, and you can see where it comes from. But yeah, it's a pretty Bomberman kind of got big fast. It seems like a lot of people were playing it originally, and but I think that they waited too long to get the sequel out there because it has the famous uh, issue that a lot of games do where they come out at there's not very many copies sold, so now it's like a $200 game to buy.
Yeah.
I don't know that it's even worth $200. Like I don't know if there's enough difference there in it between that and the original Bomberman to pay $200 for it.
No, but I can't even remember what. I'm pretty sure. I'm trying to remember what my first actual Bomberman game was. I don't think it was Super Bomberman. I think it might have been the Mega Drive version, the Genesis version. I think that was
Oh,
my first one.
Mega Bomberman,
Yeah,
which is
but
also a port of the Saturn game.
oh, was it? I didn't know that.
Yep, it's a port. It's that same game as like Super Bomberman 3, the Saturn version, and yeah, the Genesis version was also um, that same game for the most part. I just remember it
See,
has the Bomberman with the mohawk on the front. I
yeah,
actually
yeah,
picked it up from I think I actually got that from Dan not that long ago.
nice.
Yeah, he had floating around his house there a copy of Super or Mega Bomberman, and then I got what was the other game? Gunstar Heroes. I bought
Nice,
Gunstar Heroes off of him as
nice,
well. Yeah,
nice. I know
those are
one of the things that actually kind of drew me in was the fact that I mean, obviously, back in the early '90s, Power Rangers were absolutely everywhere, and I
oh yeah,
do remember that there was something like just the color coded nature of the Bomberman did kind of remind me of the, especially when you set them up against like the Axum Rangers from
oh
Super
yeah,
Mario RPG, who kind of look like Bomberman ripoffs themselves. So
yeah. Definitely some influence there, I think. But yeah, no, Power Rangers was huge at that time. So you could definitely see. I mean, and everything was kind of starting to get that color, not segregation, but like uh, identity by color of your outfit and stuff. The same thing like we got from Voltron and things in the
yeah,
past. This was just like the next wave. But yeah, you definitely were seeing it all over the place in the 90s. For,
Voltron was so confusing though because they didn't match their lines whatsoever. I
no,
was
they
so
did it.
confused all the time.
This is true. But the lions
For
were color coded.
they were color coded.
And you
By
would,
the way, Voltron Legendary Defender on Netflix is like a top 3 show of this century for me. It's fantastic, but that's neither here nor there. Uh, I just when it comes to Super Bomberman and just everything, it's. I mean, that's one of the reasons that I'm still so excited about playing Bomberman games today is just because of how much of an impact it made the franchise made on me in my youth, and this game in particular.
yes, agreed. I've talked about this game so many times. It's right up there. This game and Mortal Kombat 3, I rented enough times that I could have bought it probably 5 or 6 times. So
I respect that. I respect
yeah,
that.
this, those two games. I mean, it was an every weekend deal. I was either getting one, the other, or both. So just depending on how many people were come over to my house or if I was going somewhere else, which ones I would pick up. But yeah, these were definitely must haves and whenever I was going to rent games for quite a while.
Renting. We're so old.
Yeah, I know.
I
I miss renting though. Like I know that
do
it'd
too.
be so unconventional today, but like I just miss going to the rental store and just like kind of just walking down the aisles and looking at what's available, and there's just something that was about it. I don't know what it was.
It was. You just know you had a blast.
Yeah, and I mean with renting things, it always seemed like my rental store had a better selection than actually going into Walmart and buying something. Because when I was a kid, Walmart and Kmart, for people that still remember Kmart, those are probably the only two places where I could even buy a video game where I came
Yeah.
from. So the rental store always had way more options than what our local buy it all stores had.
The only problem with doing that with a game like Bomberman is show me the rental store that allowed you to rent the multi tap.
Yeah, I don't know of one. Whenever I was renting this game, I had it. When I would rent it to play if I wasn't going to a particular friend's house that had the multi tap. Because
Mm-hmm.
if we were going over there, then he already had the game and we were set. So I guess that's when I would rent Mortal Kombat 3 and we would play take that over there.
That's fair.
So yeah,
I know there was actually a fun little nugget about the multi tap. You told me earlier that I honestly didn't even know it existed. I didn't realize this was a thing. Is this Bomberman themed multi tap?
yeah, the Super Multi Tap 2. You know,
Mm.
yes. So yeah, the original run of Super Bomberman was sold with the multi tap,
Yep.
and then like all things, over time they dropped that out of and just sold the game by itself. So after a period of time of doing that, there were more people that wanted to have a multi tap, so they threw out this Bomberman themed multi tap and just put a 2 on the end. Sold that way. It's it's one of those I really want to hunt one down at some point, but man, they're starting to get high.
Oh,
Uh,
I'm sure. I'm
Even just
sure.
the multi tap is like a $50 item nowadays. Um, and I have a multi tap, so I'm not hurting to go buy the Bomberman one quite yet.
That's such a thing about the retro gaming market, though, is so many of the stuff, so much of this stuff is just kind of stopping functionality. It's just kind of stopped working. And
Yeah,
I mean, that's where you come with. That's where this whole idea of preservation comes in. Super Bomberman would be a fantastic addition to, in my opinion, a fantastic addition to the Super Nintendo NSO
oh, it would
app
be. And I have to tell you,
because you could do online multiplayer through that.
oh yeah, I think if we didn't have Super Bomberman R, like if that didn't exist, I think we would have something like Super Bomberman on the NSO.
Probably.
But I think that since it exists in some form, and Konami's, at this point in time is not real keen on just even releasing much of anything. Most of the time, what we get's a collection. So,
Yeah.
um, that's another thing too. I would totally buy a Super Bomb. Like if they put Super Bomberman 1 through 5 on a cart, I would totally buy it today. Like
I would
take
too.
my
Absolutely.
money right now.
And I mean, to be fair, they have been doing a lot of, I mean, physically, they've been doing a lot of collections with LRG. Obviously, we know about the Contra
Yeah,
collection and the Castlevania collections. If Konami did, a Bomberman collection, I'd be all for it, same as you.
yeah. I mean, there's so much potential. There's so many things like Bomberman Land and Bomberman World on PlayStation One, the
Hmm.
N64 games, Hero, and all those games could be
And
put
that
into a
bizarre
collection too.
Wario crossover.
Yeah, Wario Blast on Game Boy. It's
Yeah.
there's all these things which that one's probably potentially owned by Nintendo if it would ever be released, but
Yeah.
um, still, Konami has a golden nugget of a collection they could put out, and I'm sure plenty of people would go buy it, especially if they released it on the eShop at $20 like they do the rest of these.
Yeah. Thank you. I'll take 10.
Yes, exactly. Like you said, there's 70 Bomberman games just waiting to be bundled into like 3 or 4 collections, just like Mega
Yeah.
Man.
That's ultimately one of the problems, though, is as much as I love Bomberman, if you've played one, you kind of have played them all because, like I was talking about earlier, they just kind
Yep.
of nailed the gameplay right out the gate. The core gameplay for Bomberman, I mean, that was a pretty apt description. That was a pretty apt comparison when you were talking about when you were comparing the 5 Bomberman games to all the different versions of Street Fighter 2 on the
Yeah.
Super Nintendo because it was functionally the same game with some DLC that you had to buy because DLC wasn't a thing back in the day. And
It's
I mean,
true.
Super Bomberman 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, they're all Super Bomberman games. They all play the exact same. I
Yep.
mean, you'll have some different stages, some different backgrounds, and some different accoutrement. Maybe even like a little miniature cutscene. I do like the in Super Bomberman 2, the little spaceship area thing that the bad guys come down in kind of looks like Eggman took it over and turned it into the Space
Yep.
Carnival from Sonic Colors.
Yeah, and you mentioned the little cutscenes in the U.S. Super Bomberman didn't have any cutscenes, but in the Japanese version on the Super Famicom, it did have like some little, almost like comic book uh, segments,
Mm-hmm.
scenes, and it kind of played out the story that we're going to talk about here in a second. And it's something that like it really just kind of, I feel like it's something that could have easily been thrown into the Super Nintendo version because there's no words.
Yeah,
You know, there's no
yeah.
voiceover. They didn't have to worry about that. There's literally no dialogue, even in written dialogue on the screen. It's like a you know, a fairly competent 10-year-old drew Bomberman and drew what was happening in the in the story. It's nothing crazy, but at
Cool.
least it would have led, would have lent to the story because honestly I think this little snippet here of the story that I got more than likely came from the manual. If you
Yeah.
remember what those are, I don't think inside the game there really is any story to it. You're just playing the levels.
Japanese developers had no respect for American kids back in the day. We weren't good enough to play Super Mario Brothers 2 in its native form. We didn't care about story. Take those cutscenes out of there. They just
That's
want to,
it's probably the case. Yeah, Super Bomberman does have a story, um, and the game story takes place on the north of Bomberman's hometown, Peace Town. So creative.
I love the. Oh my god, I love the names. They're so like intentionally bad that you've
But
kind of got to respect it.
it's almost like the guy that had to translate and bring this over was like, nope, this is garbage. We're going with our own thing. We're just gonna go rogue and call things whatever we want.
It was
Yeah,
almost just like narrative, like story writer or scenario designer. It was almost like a punishment at some of these developers. Like you've got to write the story. It's like fine. It's going to be the stupidest, most cringy thing you've ever seen.
yep. Or they had their kid write the story for them, and then they were like, "All right, yeah, let's just run with it. This sounds just fine." So yeah,
Right.
Bomberman's from Peace Town, apparently. And, where where it
like
lies,
most explosion, like most explosion enthusiasts are.
yes, in Peace Town. Uh,
Exactly.
this is where it lies is the modern metropolis Diamond City. There, the evil Carrot Diamond and his cohort scientist Doctor Mook are holding a robot tournament with robots specially designed for their combat and offensive capabilities. So Bomberman fits right in. Says they hope to steal Bomberman's advanced combat capabilities. Diamond has created a fake Bomberman to go to Peacetown and kidnap the real one. They're aware of Diamond's plot, and Black Bomberman heads out alone to face the fake Bomberman, but Black Bomberman is defeated and his castle is taken. However, Black Bomberman escapes and seeks refuge with White Bomberman, which just really just sounds horrible when I'm reading this now.
You know what the story genuinely sounds like? It sounds like one of those things. Like I forced my AI to watch 1,000 hours of, like some weird, niche Japanese anime or something, and this.
Oh,
Then I asked it to write a script for a show.
yes, that's exactly what it sounds like. And Black Bomberman escapes somehow, seeks refuge with White Bomberman, and warns him of Diamond's evil plan. And later, hordes of enemies, robots, begin their advance towards Peacetown, and the two heroes must join forces to defeat Diamond. So, as I was saying, the Japanese version, there's like 5 or 6 little just pictures of Black Bomberman getting beat up because the doctor shows up, and then it shows him like escaping and running away, and then it shows him meet up with White Bomberman, and then it shows all the enemies, and then there's another one that shows like them standing together, like they're getting ready to fight. So yeah, that's kind of the story that's going on here. Like
Another
you would at least
typical
had a
white savior
sense,
narrative.
yeah, like you would have had a little bit of a sense of what's going on within the game. But no, we just get all the stages and kind of have to go from there. There's really no
Why they got
story.
to beat up the Black Bomberman?
That's what I was going to say. Like this sounds really bad. Once I'm reading this out loud, what the Black Bomberman do? I mean, of course, in the older Bomberman games, the Black Bomberman was like the bad guy,
Of course,
and I think this is the first game where like you kind of see them team up and like
like
fight an
the
enemy
Bomber
together.
family and stuff. Yeah,
Yeah.
like because I think most of the Bomber family was actually in this. You had like Aqua and
Yep.
I think Green was in it, and like the Bomber family has expanded quite a bit. The full Bomber family wasn't in this, but I think there were like five Bombers,
Yeah.
five members of the Bomber family were in even the first Super Bomberman game.
Yep. And so yeah, story not so great. There's not that much of a story here. We're, we're gonna go ahead and move on to the gameplay. There is a couple modes. You can get normal mode, which is the story mode, which isn't even really a story mode. It's just it's more of like an arcade mode.
Exactly.
Um, and this mode is basically just the traditional style Bomberman. It's played on the grid. You have to destroy the blocks that are destroyable to defeat enemies and gather power ups, and you have to find the exit, which is usually just hidden under a block. But like I said before, you have to kind of be careful because if you bomb the exit, more enemies will come out, and you'll have to, you know, dispatch them before you can go through the exit.
Yeah, the exit won't work until you kill all the enemies
Yep.
on the screen. But I'll give it to them because it wasn't just the same map for 70 levels or so. You had 6 different worlds, each one with 8 stages, I believe, with stage 8 being the boss.
Yep.
But I mean, to their credit, every couple of stages, not even every world, but even every couple of stages, there was like a new background, a new environment, a new biome that you were working in. So, they did at least try to change things up visually quite a bit throughout the course of the gameplay, even though the gameplay itself was functionally the exact same in every stage.
Yeah, I mean the color palette on the Super Nintendo really lent to this too. You could definitely create a different world pretty easily just by changing the colors on the grid.
Yeah.
So you definitely seen some different things. A lot better than what the NES or like I said, if you ever go back and look at pictures of the Eric and the Floaters on the MSX, you're going to be like, I can't believe that's even Bomberman.
Sounds like some
It's
1970s band or something.
Yeah, and it looks like it's a 1970s game that was on the Intellivision. Is what it
Yeah.
looks like. MSX wasn't a much of a powerhouse.
That's why they called it Eric and the Floaters. That's a
Yeah.
toilet joke, by the way.
Yes, we could do that one all night too.
I'm sure.
So the first stage in the game, Peace Town, has this pretty good sized boss in the game, but he's pretty slow, named Biggerun, and he's shows up in a few other Super Bomberman games too. He's the guy with the big hammer.
He's got the hammer, yeah.
Yep, he's to me he's kind of like the King Dedede of the Bomberman world. He shows up and he's usually like fairly early in the games.
I do kind of dig the design. There's a few like robot bosses in these games, and I do kind of dig the design. They actually kind of remind me. I can't remember the name of the character, but the robot at the carnival at the beginning of Chrono Trigger kind of reminds me of him.
He does, yeah. The training robot.
Yeah,
I can't remember his name either, if he even has a name. But he's
I
the
can't.
the
But they
one
kind
that
of reminded me of that.
he does. Yeah, I can totally see it. Um, and then, like you said, the stage 2 is a robot amusement park, and you have to fight a clown head,
Yeah,
essentially a
an
robotic clown head.
an actual disembodied floating clown head with like a Ben Franklin wig thing on, and it's just
Yeah, he's
like
not even a cool clown.
no, it'll create clownopho. I don't know what the official medical term is for it, but it'll create the fear of clowns in you. Like it's subtly horrifying. Like there's no
Yeah,
point in that.
the pixelation of it makes it a little bit more acceptable, but yeah, the artwork that is in the manual is horrific. It looks very bad.
It
Uh,
just it felt like one of the developers trolling the rest of the dev team. It's like I'm putting this in there. Why? Because I hate kids.
yes, I agree. I'm not like a really clowns don't bother me all that much, but I could definitely see where this one would bother some people if they were playing the game and weren't expecting it. Um, and then the stage 3 is Dr. Mook's robot remodeling factory, and this reminds me of like a Dr. Robotnik battle. Like you
Yeah,
could
I can see
definitely
that.
tell, yeah, you could definitely tell like that this is kind of the one like uh, where that got borrowed. Like you could see it. He's not even like he's in kind of like a, robot that's fixed to uh, horizontal movement, and like you just have to kind of work your way up to him.
Yeah.
So
It's
it's kind of a different boss fight. It doesn't move on it like he's not just able to go anywhere on the map like whenever you're fighting the other ones so
yeah, it's
far.
kind of like a much bigger version of the gun that you can get into yourself if you wind up getting blown up on the stage.
Correct. Yep. That's a good way to put it. I haven't thought about it like that, but yeah. And this fight, like the first time I remember playing this as a kid and like kind of struggling with this one a little bit, and then
Yeah, that one
as an
was kind
adult,
of weirdly hard.
yeah. But as an adult, like I looked at it and I was like, oh wait a minute, I can just come over here and kind of have like a clean shot on him most of the time, and that's usually how these games work. You kind of look at them from a different lens and you figure it out pretty easy.
Like if I remember correctly, correct me if I'm wrong, but he shot out like these bullet bill type missiles, but like those could actually push the bombs. Like they could knock the
They could,
bombs
yep, they could
around.
knock the
Yeah,
bomb.
I thought so. That was man, that was so annoying, so annoying. I died
Yeah,
a
he did.
lot to that.
Yeah, he definitely had a learning curve whenever you first started playing against him. So from there, we would move on to stage 4, which was the robot tournament qualifier dome. So this is where you'd have to fight the Mecha Onita, and he is. I'm trying to remember how he fights because I don't remember a whole lot. I remember his visuals, like his sprite work is awesome. Like it's one of my favorite of like
I
how
think
they
he
look.
had like an after image ability or something like that.
Yeah, something.
I don't know.
It's I played through a little bit, and I think I only got back to Cranehead, which was the third boss we just mentioned
Yeah,
last time I played. But I remember this guy as a kid, and I remember like just loving the sprite work on some of them. And then after that, you go to the actual robot tournament
yep,
grounds, and this is where you will fight the yellow mecha bomber. And this is like whenever you start realizing there's other colors of the Bombermen,
yeah.
and you figure out there's different things that go to them.
Yeah, Worlds 1 through 4 and even World 6 are all set up pretty similarly. You go through relatively, arcade style, full screen, kill all the enemy stages. But when you get to World 5, it's not really like that. It's just like you said, it's the tournament. And instead of going through stages, you're pitted one on one against an AI controlled Bomberman. And thankfully, they aren't as stupid in this game as they were in later games. They're super annoying. Like, if you have to fight AI, like straight up AI Bomberman, they are ridiculously annoying. But
They
thankfully, they
could,
weren't too bad here.
yeah, no, yeah, the ones in Super Bomberman are like the harder difficulties of the game. Like
Yeah,
they just straight up cheat.
they do.
It's like, how did you avoid that? Like that should have got you. I watched it. and you somehow escaped.
I jumped. I was like, that's not even a thing. Shut up.
Can't jump a Bomberman. Come on. Um, and then stage 6, the last stage of the game, you actually have to fight two bosses. There's a sub boss that's a spider named.
Yep.
Again, this is my 5-year-old made this up. This is a Spiderer.
I didn't know the name.
Yeah, Spiderer.
Spiderer.
Yes. Spiderer reminds me of there's a boss just like him in Super Bomberman R, where like you have to attack like the legs.
Oh yeah. That's the first boss. That's what Magna Bomber turns into.
Yes,
Yeah.
a similar boss fight, and then the last boss of the game is
I can't
yeah,
get
no,
past that name.
Spiderer.
It's like all right, this good job, good sprite work on this boss. What's it going to be called? Spider.
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah,
Spider. Okay, cool. We'll call it that.
yeah. He definitely looks cooler than what his name is, and the sprite work on
Yeah.
him is really nice too. That's that's the thing. I don't think like Bomberman doesn't get enough credit for its sprite work on his characters because a lot of them just look really cool, and you can tell like they progressively get better as the games go on.
Mm-hmm.
The original
That's fair.
Bomberman
That's fair.
not so great. Like
No. No.
like Mega Man was like blowing them out of the water early on,
Yeah.
sprite work wise. But as you get into like some of the Super Bomberman games, the sprite work gets like phenomenally better. I definitely enjoy it. Uh, and then we have the last boss, which is Uitaru V, and he
Gesundheit.
is yeah he. This reminds me, looking at this picture now that thinking about it, he kind of reminds me of the laughing uh, clown guy from Cowboy Bebop, like the what he's
Okay.
riding in. I don't know
Yeah.
if you've watched Cowboy Bebop, but
It's been a long time. I
yeah,
didn't even watch the Netflix adaptation.
it was okay. I kind of see why they got rid of it. Um, but at the same time, it's kind of disappointing. Like it's kind of neat to see a live action.
Oh
Uh,
yeah.
but I'm not like a purist. A lot of those guys are like, oh, you don't need to don't touch it. It's perfect just the way it is. Like, yeah, sometimes it's nice to just see like a different, vision on it. But yeah, no, this is just like the most annoying boss fight. Like he has like the higher speed. I think his speed's like a 5 or something like that. So he's on you pretty good, pretty early
I
on.
I honestly like I remember this boss, like the final boss, like wasn't he above the stage? Like I don't even remember being able
Yeah,
to hit him.
yeah. I'm trying to remember how you damage him now in my head. I just remember like whenever uh when he's attacking, he's fast,
Yeah.
but I can't remember how you damage him off the top
I
of my
remembered
head.
I do remember like instead of just directly attacking, I do remember the final boss like just dropping a lot of those skull anti power ups.
Yep,
Like that was his whole thing. Is instead of directly attacking you, he just did that and just flew above the stage, just laughing at you the whole time. Yeah, 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 yeah. You can't hit me. And I wanted to punch the TV.
very much so. And it's the same, it's the same guy. It's uh, Doctor Diamond or Carrot Diamond
Yeah.
that's driving the robots on stage 3 and stage 6,
Hmm.
um, and you can like see them in there. But yeah, you beat him and you win the Bomberman tournament and you save Peacetown. Um,
Yes. You have blown up so much that
yep.
you have that peace has been restored.
Yes. It's a balance. It's kind of like Star Wars.
I've always loved that, like how supposedly family friendly and how like frankly goody two shoes, especially Bomber White is. He's supposed to be the leader and he wants to protect people, but at the same time, they literally explode everything they come into contact with.
Yes. Oh man, I
Speaking of
can't.
that, that's a crossover that needs to happen. Bomberman cross Explosion Man.
Yes, yeah, I could see that. That's. I mean, really, I'll take Bomberman in a lot of games. Like, I think Bomberman is a very interesting character that gets left out a lot. Like, he should have been a playable character in Smash.
Well, technically, as I
Wink.
like, yeah, like a jerk, I push my glasses up. We did at the very least, get the me costume for Bomberman. But yeah,
Yeah,
I absolutely would have preferred to Bomberman to be more than an assist trophy.
I could just imagine like some of his special moves being able to like his bomb having the same like cross effect, and then like you being able to rotate it or something if you wanted to, and then also him being able to over time get uh, a higher blast radius, and like I could totally see it.
I could too. If you're a fan of Smash Brothers, though, and you want to play as Bomberman, I don't know if you've ever played Dream Mix TV World Fighters.
I haven't.
That was a game done. I can't remember who actually published it, but it was done. Konami, Hudson Soft, and Takara all got together on the GameCube and created a Smash Brothers like game that had characters from Bloody Roar. That was actually Solid Snake is in that game. That predates his appearance in Brawl. Uh, Optimus Prime, Megatron, but Bomberman is actually a playable character in that game, and it's a Smash like. So it never came to the West, but it's an absolutely bonkers Japanese game if you can somehow get your hands on it.
Yeah, I'd have to. I don't have a GameCube right now that could play Japanese games, but I could easily do that. I wonder how expensive this game is now.
Oh, I'm sure it's nuts. I haven't looked at it in the past couple of years, but I'm sure it's nuts. But
I mean, A, it's a GameCube game, and like B, it
yeah,
sounds really cool, so I'm sure it's probably up there. It's probably one of those
it's
games that didn't sell well when it originally came out, too.
yeah. I don't know how well it sold in Japan. I know I certainly would have bought it if they brought it over here. That's one of those things that's just so crazy. You have to see it for yourself.
It sounds like it. I mean, I'm game. I might have to like look this up after we get off here.
Oh, it's absolutely nuts. You should definitely at least watch a couple of YouTube videos. Just the simple, just simply seeing the Easter egg island head from Gradius versus
Ah,
Optimus Prime versus Simon Belmont versus Bomberman all on the same screen. It's your mind will unravel in real time.
man, yeah. No, I've definitely got to look into this now.
It's great,
Interest
but
peaked.
when it comes to, I mean, honestly, outside of stuff like that, I can't really think of too many other things that Bomberman has shown up, and I'm sure he's been Easter eggs in other Konami and Hudson Soft games, but I'm having a hard time kind of thinking about him right now.
Yeah, I can't think of anything he's shown up in that just comes to mind. Like it was a really good deal, but um, definitely wish that he wasn't just an assist trophy in a me costume on Smash. I think he would have
Yeah.
been cool as a fighter.
I can kind of see why they didn't, just because, he's from the outside looking in, it does look like he has a very limited overall move set. So I don't know, maybe that, gave them cold feet or something. But still, he had, as far as I'm concerned, he had the same recognition, the same name recognition as many of the characters who did make the roster.
Yeah,
He's
we're
he's up
representing.
Yeah, he's up there with many of those characters as far as I'm concerned. Maybe not as far as some newer gamers, the newer generation is concerned, but I think gamers of a certain age, I think there's a lot of us. I think there's a surprising number of us that still hold Bomberman in high esteem.
I hope so. Anyway, it's definitely worth it. There's a lot of good Bomberman games out there.
There are a lot of good Bomberman games out there that mostly tackle uh, the classic style gameplay. Again,
Yeah,
maybe don't do too much with the 3D open world 64-bit era. Stay away from that. But yeah, the Saturn one's fantastic. The obviously the one we're talking about, the one we're focusing on today, the original Super Bomberman for the Super Nintendo slash Super Famicom, the first in the series of five. Like I actually didn't know that there were five up until a couple years ago. I knew we got the first two in the West. And I vaguely remember hearing about another one that had been released, but I actually didn't know until recently that there was a full five Super Bomberman games on the Super Famicom. I was like, why? Why? And then I was like, oh, Bomberman. Okay, that's fair.
Yeah, I'm sure that in Japan it sold like crazy. Like they added the ride animals and like um,
Yeah.
just all the things that they do in Japan. Like just kept adding things to it, and I'm sure it sold like hotcakes whenever it was over there. I
I
just wish
wonder
we
what
would have
that
got.
conversation was like. It's like, you want to
Oh,
do what with Bomberman? It's like, I don't. I just played Golden Axe, so we're going to do that now.
yeah, yeah. What it reminds me of is like even the look of the ride animals kind of remind me of like a Kirby
Yeah,
um,
yeah,
Dreamland type.
yeah, I could definitely see that.
Uh, it looks like the same like artwork and everything, like the same idea. So yeah, no, it's definitely fun. They should have brought more of that over here. But like I said, I didn't have a Saturn, so I definitely didn't play that one. And now it's like astronomical. Like even if you do have a Saturn, it's like a $300 game
Yeah.
or something.
Well, a lot of Saturn games are stupidly priced now, anyway.
Yeah,
Uh, but I mean, I think I don't know of too many Bomberman games that. I mean, if you're looking to get into, if you're looking to play classic Bomberman games, as much as I hate to say it, I honestly don't even know where I would steer you.
if you didn't already have particular consoles, there's really not like a great place to get into classic Bomberman that I can think of off the top of my head. I
Yeah.
mean, I'm sure you could probably buy um, maybe on the 3DS. Maybe there is some on the. I'd have to look. I can't remember if there's even Bomberman on the Virtual Console.
Oh, that's a good question. I don't know. And I remember, like I said earlier, I played the NES Classics version of Bomberman on the Game Boy Advance. Uh, but they released a lot of NES games on the Virtual Console, an impressive number of NES games on the Virtual Console for the 3DS. I still have a lot of them downloaded on mine right now. I know Bomberman isn't one of them that I have downloaded. At least I don't know if it's actually on the 3DS eShop. And of course, very famously, the 3DS and Wii U eShops
Or
are
leaving.
they are leaving. So if that's something you guys are into and you can find it on there, maybe pick it up.
Yeah, I didn't even think to look before we got on here, but I highly doubt that this game is on the Super Nintendo one because they didn't put very many games on the
Yeah,
3DS Super Nintendo Virtual Console. But even on the Wii U, I don't think. Maybe Steam has some. If you have a PC, might be able to search around there and find something. But I'm just not familiar with any good ways to play the classic games. I know that
which
Bomberman
stinks.
itself is pretty cheap on the NES if you have an NES. Like it's not outlandish, not like the second game.
Yeah,
And then, Super Bomberman 1 and 2 on Super Nintendo, if you have a Super Nintendo, they're like $40 games, 40, 35, somewhere around in there. So they're not outrageously expensive like some Super Nintendo games are. Uh, but definitely, if you haven't played any Bomberman, uh, I would even just recommend if you have a current generation console to just play Super Bomberman R because uh,
absolutely.
it's very to the core Bomberman. Like not a whole lot of major changes were made. Like they stick to the formula and it's awesome.
It looks like Bomberman 94 is actually on the Wii U eShop.
There we go. It's probably not a bad one to play either because, like I said, I believe that is a uh, Bomberman 94, Super Bomberman 3, and Mega Bomberman are all connected in some way. They're either the same game, different ports, or they're different variations of close to the same game. So uh, definitely, I mean, on the Wii U eShop, that's going to be like what, like $6 or
Something like that. Yeah.
yeah. So it's definitely
Uh,
worth picking up.
I think 16-bit games were $7.99, but still, I mean,
$8. Yeah.
yeah,
Oh,
but
totally.
still.
But we can't get away from Bomberman without talking about some of the items because they are 100% what makes up Bomberman.
Oh yeah,
Without them, the game would be very lame. There wouldn't be a whole
the
lot going on.
the glorious RNG. You know,
Yes.
you were talking about like a pro tour or high level play. This is the reason why I don't think it could be actually viable as, I guess, as a pro esport or something, just
Yeah.
because of how random it is. But that is still a huge part of what makes the game fun and makes the game interesting. Because even from the start of a match, if you see your friend or you see another player grab like two or three quick out the gate, all of a sudden it becomes this mad scramble. All of a sudden you have this heightened sense of like, oh, it stuff gets real really quickly.
Well, yeah, and if you're noticing that the person across from you's getting some good power ups that are going to be able to get to you very quickly, you immediately ditch the strategy of like just trying to open up the area around you to find power ups, and you're like burrowing to try to get down to another area away from them as quickly as possible
Mm-hmm.
to try to find some stuff and hope that you can dig up like a skull or something to keep them occupied. Um, but yeah, so you have bomb ups, which give you an extra bomb because traditionally in Bomberman you only start off with one bomb
Mm-hmm.
until you find the bomb up. And then you have the fire up, like we talked about, increases the firepower, your blast radius of your bombs.
Yep.
Block pass is, I believe, only in single player, but allows you to pass through the blocks that can be blown up. Speed up is a very dangerous power up.
Yeah.
It
Yeah, it
lets you get
is.
very fast,
I
very
wouldn't
quickly.
recommend grabbing more than a couple of them. Definitely do not max it out.
Yes, you'll be so fast that you'll run into explosions that you don't mean to real quick.
Oh
Um,
yes.
Kick is the game changer.
Yep.
I can't remember if I know in the single players, some of these are only available in certain stages. Um, I don't like. We're going to get to a couple later that I don't think are available in the first stage, and you kind of have to like get further into the game. But the kick allows you to kick a bomb that's laying on the ground as long as there's a direction that it can move in away from you. You obviously can't kick it through other blocks or anything, but if there's a path and you need to get a bomb out of there, you can kind of kick it, which can be kind of funny whenever your buddy places a bomb by you and then runs in a straight line away from you, and you can just kick the bomb right over to him right before it blows up. Um,
So functionally, the way this appears in the game is if you run up to a bomb, if you press in the direction of the bomb, if there are any open spaces in that direction, the bomb will go as many spaces as it has in that direction. It's almost
Correct.
like it's almost like it's on a slippery ground. So you
Yep.
just like it's a kick power up, but it's functionally a push,
Yeah. I mean, since you can't kick over blocks or anything, yeah, it's essentially like a push, like you
like a
said.
Spartan kick. Like this is Bomberman.
Yeah. Well, that's the boxing glove,
Yeah,
technically.
that's true. That's true.
With the boxing glove, now you're getting to where you don't have to have a space. You can essentially punch a bomb, or he has more of like a throwing animation when he uses this, but
Yeah.
essentially you're like punching the bomb, and it can go over the blocks that can't be destroyed, to the point where like it can leave the map and then re-enter the map on the other
That's
side.
so cool. That's so cool. I love that. There are a few things in this world more satisfying than winning a match of Bomberman by throwing a bomb off the right side of the map only to have it appear on the left side of the map and blow up your opponent who had no clue what was coming his way.
Exactly. And if you get hit by the bomb, it will kind of like stun you.
Yeah.
It's like if you're in a spot between where the bomb is bouncing and it hits you on the head, it kind of like stuns you for a little bit, which can be very dangerous because then that leaves you little or leaves you less time to try to evacuate the area of the bomb, the radius. So you have a very highly likeliness that you're going to get it blown up if you're sticking around too long.
I know in the newer games, if you get hit by the bomb, you'll actually drop a power up or two. I can't remember if it was that way in Super Bomberman.
Yeah, I don't remember. I don't remember if it was that way or not. I'd have to go back and play the multiplayer
Hmm.
because I've never had. I mean, I guess you'd either have to hit yourself with a bomb or have one of the enemies that can move bombs get you, but I haven't had that happen playing the single player. The next power up would be the remote control, which gives you like a just a remote control bomb. You can lay it and then blow it up at any time you want.
Hmm.
Which if the opposing player doesn't know that you have this, they might try to run by it, and you can, thinking that they have time, and you can just let it go whenever you want.
The remote control bomb is actually a different sprite, though, isn't it?
Yes. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, that's true. It does have like the little thing on top. It's
yeah.
like a bigger box or whatever. Um, I
So
forgot
if
about that.
they don't know, they're gonna learn today.
They're gonna learn quick. That is true. Uh, and then in single player, there is a time power up that allows you to have more stage time if needed.
Yeah,
Uh,
you don't need it.
no, most of the time you wouldn't need this. If you're even fairly proficient at playing Bomberman, you're gonna have zero problems completing a stage in the amount of time they give you. It's usually like 3 minutes or something like that, which is
Yeah,
absurd for a grid that's like maybe 60 by 60 tops.
yeah. I
Uh,
honestly didn't know the stages had a time limit for the longest time because it's it's shown off in the weirdest way.
yeah,
It appears as this weird, like there are these hash marks at the top of the screen that occasionally just kind of they'll start to disappear. And I honestly didn't know what it was for the longest time. And then I finally put two and two together. I was like, oh, this is a countdown timer.
yep,
Wow, that's way too much time.
yeah. And I can't remember if in like the original or in later Bomberman games, as you run out of time, like they start eliminating
Yeah,
sections of the stage, and I can't remember that happening in Super Bomberman, the original game. I think that's something that got added later.
I think
Uh,
so. Yeah.
and then you also have a one up power up, which again you're probably not going to need because you're not going to die a whole lot playing this game, uh, unless you know on accident a few times, and then you learn. Uh, and then there's the very dangerous full fire power up that gives you full
Yep.
firepower instant.
Yeah.
Um,
Your bombs
it,
immediately have max explosive range, and that
yep.
is that's a fantastic power up. You are just as likely to hurt yourself once you
Yeah,
grab that.
it's it's super dangerous early on
Oh yes.
because if you're blocked in, boxed in a fairly tight area, you definitely don't want bombs with full power explosions going off. You'll end up bombing yourself on accident. But later in the game, like or in the match, whenever the the place is cleared out and you're trying to funnel people, like we were talking about, the full fire bomb is perfect. Now you can start leading people where you want to go, and they have less room to move within.
Typically, when you drop a bomb, the explosion will only go as far as the first block in that direction. It'll typically only explode the first block. I thought Super Bomberman had the power up that basically just lets you clear as far as the explosive range you had.
I
It's denoted as a spiky bomb in the newer games, but I thought that was in the original Super Bomberman as well.
that might be in the multiplayer power ups, which I did not list on here. I forgot to. I think. Um, but I mean, we could talk about them. I'm pretty sure that one is in there. Same way with the bomb that's kind of like made out of like rubber, the one that can
Yeah,
bounce. I
Yeah,
believe is also in this game
yeah.
already, which I don't have listed here because I think it's mainly only in the multiplayer. Um,
I kind of
but
low key hate the bouncy ones because those are so unpredictable.
they are, yeah, because again, they kind of work like the boxing glove where they can bounce over things. And they can just end up in places that you don't expect them really quickly, especially if you have multiple people that have them and they're just going everywhere.
Yeah,
Chaos can ensue very quickly. Uh, yeah, there
more
is a
so
bit.
than there typically is.
Oh yeah, because I totally forgot about the bomb you mentioned, and then I just when you said that, and I was just thinking about, it, I was like, man, there is some other types of bombs that I don't have listed here, so they must be in the multiplayer one. Um, yeah, having the different types of bombs totally changes the game how it's played as well. It's something that I don't think like the further down the line you go of Super Bomberman games, the more different types have been added to the point where like there's some pretty crazy ones in Super Bomberman are. Um,
Yeah,
but so we talked a little bit about battle mode. That's the other mode that's present on this game, and you can compete in 4 different stages, which are just different variations of the stages you can find in the single player game. And you can play up to 4 players if you have the multi tap. And then I just kind of listed the different stages, and I don't know if you played these enough whenever you were a kid or even recently to remember which ones are which and which ones are like. There's a lot of them that are kind of basic, but there's definitely some worth mentioning, like some that have conveyor belts. There's some
yeah,
that have like teleporters. There's uh, ones that have pipes, kind of like Mario style, where you can go in a pipe and come out the other side. Uh, and the bombs will also do that if you have like kick. So
yeah.
like some different things.
I
Um,
think the group that I was with most of the time, like the gimmicks were cool and they were there if you wanted to make use of them. But I think most of the time we just kind of wanted a no frills. May seem vanilla, but I mean, there's something to be said for Battlefield or Final Destination style fights.
yeah, they definitely have their place. Like if you're trying to keep it to where there's as little things impacting the match around you as there can be, I can see that.
Yeah. Well, we all had that one friend that would just swear up and down, if it wasn't for this one thing that happened, I totally would have whooped you. If it wasn't for
Exactly.
that thing, so I think that was a big reason. It's like, well, fine. 1v1 me, bro. That was our version of
Exactly.
1v1 me.
Oh yeah. There's one though that remind or that I always think about because yeah, it's called the dual zone, and all of the soft blocks are gone, and there's no items, and instead all the items are lined up around the outer edges of the map. It's like you don't have to find them; they're all there. You just have to collect the ones you want, before everyone else does. And we played that one a lot, and we played the conveyor belt one a lot. I remember playing the conveyor belt one and getting all the soft blocks knocked out, and then just having this giant square conveyor belt that would take the bombs
Yeah, all the way
around the
around the
map.
stage.
Yeah, and then all 3 of you guys, 4 of you have the full powered up bombs, and they're just like going around the conveyor, and you don't know where they're going to blow up at. So I just remember that one being a lot of fun for randomness. But yeah, no, it is kind of amazing that they had 12 stages for multiplayer and how different a lot of them were. I mean, they had
That's
some
fair.
vanilla ones, but for a Super Nintendo game in 1993 to have like 12 different battle stages for the multiplayer is pretty crazy.
They have 4-player multiplayer and 12 different stages that all significantly impacted the gameplay.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
I guess I think there's like maybe 1 or 2, 3 max that are normal type stages that are just like the different themes. But all
yeah.
the rest of them are like there's some pretty different stuff going on in a lot of these. Um, yeah, so that's multiplayer play. I do have some fun facts there were just some different things that you could do with the game, because the game did have a password system at this point in
Yes.
time, and
Oh, the old 16-bit password system. Oh, how I
yeah,
miss thee.
carried over from the 8-bit generation, the early, uh, which this one wasn't even that early. This was a 93, but this
93, yeah.
allowed, this allowed you to essentially continue where you died if you couldn't continue.
Yep.
But at the same time, you could also put in passwords and get things like Tiny Bomberman, which has no impact on the gameplay. It just makes them all Tiny Bomberman in the multiplayer.
Those hidden codes, man. I miss having stuff like that.
I
I miss
do. I
having
do too.
like hidden secrets, stuff that once you stumbled upon it, it was like this massive realization. This has like, oh my god.
Yeah, I mean, it was always to me like I miss that time period almost where the internet wasn't a thing, and
Yeah,
like you had to scour for things and like tribal knowledge between friends, or you would look forward to getting the new EGM magazine or whatever that had a cheat code section in the back and be like, oh, what games do I have that I can get a cheat code for now? Now you have anything, anytime at your disposal, and like it's almost just overload. Like I love the
yeah,
internet sometimes, but sometimes it's like I really don't need to know this much. Like it's distracting from other things that are in life. Like I could just sit and Google things all day and learn things, now that it's available.
yeah. But just knowing that Bomberman is owned by Konami now makes me wonder how the Konami code would even work in Super
Oh
Bomberman.
yeah, yeah, and I can't remember exactly when that transition happened, but it was, man, probably in like the Wii era, or maybe PlayStation 2 time frame. I can't even remember, but I know it was like it was way after the Super Bomberman series had
Yeah. Oh yeah.
concluded before it got reopened again. Um, yeah, no, I don't know what that. I guess you could just get infinite lives,
Yeah,
or
and Infinite Lives, fully powered up Bomberman, which would be stupidly dangerous. But
exactly like that's like, man, is it really worth being all powerful or having this many lives if I'm just all powerful and going to kill myself anyway?
the only one who can hurt me is me.
Exactly. Oh man. And there's another one. You can get if you're playing the normal game, you can get lives by let's see, using the player one controller. Press the X button during the open cinema. This is only possible in the Japanese version because the intro was removed from all the other versions, which is what we were talking about.
Yep.
So that story panel that I was telling you that's in the Japanese version would happen at the intro screen. If you would let the intro screen sit long enough, it would start playing these panels and telling you the story of the game. In the US version, if you let the title screen sit for too long, it'll just go to like the demo gameplay of the game. Like a lot of games at that time, like it would just start playing itself, um, and show you what the game is. Um, but if you have the Japanese version of this game and you pull this code off, it basically makes it to where the players will be able to start the normal game from area 1-1 with 9 lives, which is the maximum amount. So essentially, that would be like the Konami code for that game, but only if you were playing Super C. Where instead of getting 99 lives, you get 10.
Oh, I need the Contra collection now.
Oh, you do. It's I have it digitally, but I passed up on it physically because
Mm.
I'm not as big of a Contra fan as I am like Castlevania and the arcade collection.
You know, speaking of Contra, though, that was one of my favorite things about Super Bomberman R is all the different Konami characters,
Yes,
all the
that
different
was
Konami bombers. That was so cool. That was so cool, and I really hope they keep doing that. As a matter of fact, speaking of like all the different bombers that were in the game, like Gilman is a personal favorite of mine in Super Bomberman R. But I mean, since we're talking about Super Bomberman. Could you imagine if they had like classic sprite costumes in Super Bomberman R2?
That would be, yes, that would be amazing.
That would be so great if they had classic 16-bit sprite costumes in Super Bomberman R2. I would probably pay for that.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I think they could make that one a pay DLC, and I would probably buy them, um, especially if they were like fitting to that era. And I want the ability to like turn the Super Bomberman R levels into like pixelated, like
Oh, dude.
60 Bomberman levels. That would be pretty cool too.
Oh my god. I would never stop playing that.
It'd be so nice.
It'd be so much
Uh,
fun.
and then this is a fun one too, as we were kind of talking about when using the multi tap. Technically, you have 5 controller slots because
Yep.
you're using one to add 4, which gives you the second player controller port is still open. So if you put a controller in that port, it lets you access the sound test mode, which lists all the songs in the game and all the sound effects. Uh, it can be just navigated with the directional pad on the controller. So it was kind of like a weird. There was no way to access the sound test mode like in the options, and this was just kind of like a weird thing they threw in there. It was probably like a debugging option at some
Yeah.
point, and
Yeah.
then someone's like, "Oh, hey, let's do this." It's still there, but
Those weird 16-bit debug modes, those were so bizarre.
yeah, I mean the day and age of like current uh, game development lacking all these things, needing a way to get back into the game during playtesting and all that stuff is kind of eliminated that. But definitely love finding out on some of the older games that I have, like, oh yeah, you could do this and like just totally break the game if you wanted to, because that's how it was intended.
Well, debug mode in the modern era is basically just the source code in the modding community.
Yeah. Yeah, basically, yeah. If it's a big enough game to have a huge modding community, they take advantage of that pretty quickly. Uh,
I've never actually seen any Bomberman mods. Have you?
I haven't, but I have to imagine that there's somebody out there doing it. Like, there's almost always somebody modding something that you would never expect.
Exactly. Yeah. If any of you out there listening to this know of any cool Bomberman mods, let us know. I'd actually be really interested in seeing that.
Same here. We, yeah, there's got to be something like
Gotta
I
be.
can't remember. We were talking. I think it was even in your Discord maybe that anything that exists in the meta has a group of followers somewhere, be it 3 people even. There's
Yeah.
always somebody out there that's like super into something. So I'm sure it exists,
Every
but
game is somebody's favorite.
exactly. Even Superman 64, because we know somebody who's pretty fond of
Dude,
that game.
yeah. For what he's talking about there is my co-host on All In, Seth, unironically adores Superman 64, and you can't fault him. It's part of his childhood. It was a game he had growing up. He didn't know
Yeah,
any better.
yeah. Everyone has that game. You played it and you tell somebody else about it, and they're like, "Man, that game was garbage." And you're like, you go back and you're like, "Yeah, this game was garbage, but man, I loved it when I was a kid. Like it was all I
Yep,
played."
yep. Leave the
Uh,
memories alone.
that is right. That is pretty much Super Bomberman. I think we've covered inside, outside, all Super Bomberman that could be contained in one episode. So
Yeah, I think we've basically exhausted all the Bomberman talk we can here in the past hour and a half. But it's been a lot of fun. I unironically adore this franchise. Again, that was one of my most hype announcements from this past partner direct at the end of June was seeing the brand new Super Bomberman R2. Just talking about some of this stuff, potentially just even throwing out fantasies like them adding the Super Bomberman 16-bit skins to the new game or adding it to NSO or something like that. Even those have just made me super excited. Just any reason to play more Bomberman. It's such
Same.
It's such an underrated franchise now. I guess it's just because they never really knew how to bring the gameplay into the modern age. I guess they just never really were able to click as technology and as the industry evolved. They never really knew how to break out of the grid that they created for themselves back on the NES. And I guess that's why the game's just kind of fallen off from the mainstream. But I mean, for people like you, for people like me, I still have a ton of fond memories of mini Bomberman games. I'm still super excited to play the next one. And if any of you out there have not had a great, just get a Bomberman game, get some friends together, grab some beers if you're old enough, or some soda if you're not old enough, and just take a night and just tell me that a night of 4-player multiplayer mayhem in Bomberman isn't one of the most fun nights of video gaming you've had in a long time.
It's really the only way to do it. And as we mentioned, like you could play Super Bomberman R online at least for a little bit longer, and it's free. Like you just go if you have a current gen console, you can just go download it and you can play Bomberman right now.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it's even online, so you don't even have to have friends that once you get to be our age, having friends come over and play video games is like few and far in between. So online is a blessing. Um,
When you
so
get to
yeah,
be
go.
our age, the only way we can coordinate that is to make it seem like it's our kids who want to play.
Yeah, exactly. And that's as I mentioned before, like that's how I play a lot of these games. Like, is I have enough kids we can play 4-player Bomberman, and they're not always the best at it, but they learn. Like they get it figured out.
Oh yeah,
Super Bomberman R was like it was the first game I bought on the Switch. Um, I had it. I bought it online and picked it up the night that the Switch released, and then I bought Zelda while I was there. So technically, it was the first game that I bought and the first game that I played because uh, I played it as soon as I got home while I was
yeah,
for uh, waiting to get everything ready to go to play Zelda. I wasn't going to start a game that I knew was going to be a 100-hour game for me on opening night whenever I had Super Bomberman available and could pop in and play a few matches.
exactly. I'm literally almost in exactly that same boat. I got them both launch day back in March 2017, and I had Zelda Breath of the Wild, and I had Super Bomberman R, and I chose to play through Super Bomberman R first.
Not a bad choice. They're both very good games. I mean,
Both
more
very good
people would
games.
probably agree that they would rather play Zelda, but I'm all for some Bomberman fans.
And I will die on the hill that while Super Bomberman R didn't really have enough content to warrant a $40 price tag at launch, the amount of free content that game received over its lifetime was staggering. Genuinely more than doubled the size of that game with free
Oh
content.
yeah,
Really impressed. Konami deserves all the credit in the world for all the free stuff they added to Super Bomberman R. Just makes me more excited for Super Bomberman R 2.
yeah. I mean, it's one of those things. I think that they were trying to get the game out by release. Probably
Yep,
didn't get all the things in there that they wanted to originally, but I mean, that's the thing and the blessing of being a developer in a current age is, hey, you can just start adding this stuff in whenever you're ready. And
exactly.
people take it, little bite-sized morsels of great downloads that you can extend the life of a game, exponentially. Uh, you know, how we how I was comparing the ride on animals to Kirby. Kirby's another one of those like Allies received updates for like a whole year, and they just kept throwing things in that game. And I remember like I'd played through that with my kids, and then like, oh, the next thing's coming out. We're gonna go play it
Yep.
again, get it out and play it again. So
Yeah, that was great.
definitely,
They kept adding classic characters to but when Star Allies came out, that was kind of arguably like, this was okay. But then they kept adding classic characters for you to
oh
play
yeah,
as, like Tyranza and Adeline and Rick Kynan Koo and
Oh yeah,
basically everybody that Kirby had ever met up to that point, and you
yep,
could
they're all
play as
there.
all.
That's like
I was like,
the
that's
partner game to
amazing.
Smash Brothers Ultimate.
Exactly.
Everyone's here in the Kirby verse.
Everyone's here in Dreamland.
That's right. Well, since we've exhausted Bomberman and we've had a blast doing it,
Hmm.
I'll give you a chance to promote your content that you guys do over at All In, and we'll get ready to close this thing up.
Sounds good. Well, we don't really do too much. No, that's clearly a joke. We work tirelessly over at All In, a Nintendo podcast. Me and my co-host Seth. Every Saturday, we release a new episode of uh, the quintessential Nintendo variety show. We do retrospectives. We do news, obviously. We do indie showcases every week. We do top fives. We do retrospectives. As a matter of fact, we're doing a retrospective this week on Mario Sunshine. We talk to so many different people within the industry this week. As a matter of fact, we're actually interviewing the people behind Monster Sanctuary, who just dropped a massive free update for their game called The Forgotten World. That I mean, just look at the patch notes for that thing. It's practically a book. They basically remade the game. But I mean, we're constantly doing all kinds of stuff. Seth is actually, as we're talking right now, Seth is streaming at All In, twitch.tv/All In Podcast. We've got a ton of videos up on youtube.com/All In Podcast. We've got a Patreon at patreon.com/All In Podcast. We're always doing stuff. So if you're a fan of Nintendo, if you're a fan of the Big N, I definitely recommend checking out All In, a Nintendo podcast, and our entire network of content. We are always doing something. Check us out.
Awesome, and definitely go give All In all of your support. Listen to them, drop them some words whenever you get around to getting to it. It's definitely one of my favorite Nintendo podcasts out
Thank
there.
you.
There are lots of options, so that's always a good thing. Can't wait for that Saturday. It's almost like waking up to Saturday morning cartoons. You know, you can always expect that show to drop into the feed and have something to listen to on a good Saturday.
Oh yeah, we're always working on the next episode. We're always trying to give you guys quality content and new and interesting stuff to listen to. So it's
Well,
we love doing it, man. We love doing it for you guys. We have an amazing community. You should consider joining it. We've got Discord, we've got Twitter and Facebook. We're slowly taking over the Nintendo world.
you guys are, and also, you guys. I know you guys just recently got into Patreon, so that's another
Yep.
way that you could support the podcast. Um, Definitely just go check it out. You'll find all the stuff. Just search All In, and it will all be there, and open you up to a whole world of Nintendo that you aren't usually used to, and plenty of 3-hour podcasts to eat up your whole day.
We do go long, but we're a segment based show. We're always talking about something new, and it's all capital N, all big N, a Nintendo podcast.
Well, awesome. I'm glad you showed up, and
Thanks
we
for
were going to
having me,
have
man.
yeah, we were going to have another Eric, and it was just going to be an episode of Eric's.
I
But
bombed him out of the show.
yeah, our good buddy and friend of the podcast, Eric Plunk, he's in the Discord, hanging out with everyone all the time. Couldn't make it, so we decided we were going to go solo and just knock this one out anyway. As usual, it's the end of the show, and I will go ahead and let everyone know that Kirby 64, the Crystal Shards, was the game that we played this month for Retro Rewind, and that will be the next episode. So anybody that's still playing that game, you might want to finish up so that you can join us and talk about it on the next episode, which will be in 2 weeks.
Mm.
We're gonna have a blast talking about Kirby 64 because there's a lot in that game to unpack.
Ooh. I finally got to play it myself for the first time because of NSO, and I adored it.
It's we I talked a little bit about it in the latest episode of Retrologic. It's it's not my favorite Kirby game, and you can definitely tell that it struggled a little bit being on the 64 and probably a very not enough time in the oven whenever they were putting it out. But there's definitely some things in the game that are uh, A plus uh, development parts of the game that I love. The combinations of power ups and uh, Sam and I were definitely just adoring the graphics of the game for the N64. This is like a really good looking game, which
Yeah.
is it's not near as muddy as a lot of N64 games usually tend to get. With them trying to clean it up that polygon look, it's just it's a good clean game and it's a lot of fun. It's definitely one that I highly recommend to anyone that has kids. Like they'll have a blast
Yeah.
playing it, and it still holds up gameplay wise today
Yeah.
without any issues. But
Well, I'll be looking forward to hearing you guys talk about that in a couple weeks.
yes, for sure. Um, we'll definitely do Inside Out on Kirby 64 for sure. But yeah, that's the podcast. So thanks for listening on Topic Retro. We're a part of the RetroLogic family of podcasts, which is also under the larger umbrella of the Nintendo Dads family of podcasts. Oddly enough, if you'd like to send in your personal experiences for the next show, but you don't have Discord or you haven't joined our Discord, you can send them to ontopicretro@gmail.com. If you haven't joined our wonderful non-toxic RetroLogic Discord and would like to, you can visit retrologic.games for details on how you can join for free. Um, it's a fantastic place to be. You won't no hate. Like everyone is just the best guys, best gals in the world. Everyone's really awesome over there. You're going to feel very welcomed as soon as you join in. I could
It's
say
the
the same thing.
logical choice.
Yeah, yes. I can say the same thing for the All In Discord. They're a bunch of good folks over there as well. I frequent quite often.
Yes, you
Um,
do, and you're a valued member of our community.
yes, definitely enjoy my time hanging out with you guys over there. But yeah, that's it for the episode. Stay tuned for more. We'll catch you guys on the next one. Bye now.
I was managing a retro video game store for a while, and I had to go drop off deposits every day. And I would pick up a little cup of what's the word I'm looking for? Uh, Not commemorative. Uh, Get the free coffee basically.
Oh,
I
okay.
uh, just pick up a cup of coffee, and I would drop off my deposit, and I'd go back. And like 3 weeks later, they're like, "Oh, we'll have your coffee out soon, Eric." I'm like,
Yeah.
is that just me now? Am I just the coffee guy now?
Coffee
So
guy.
it just,
Yeah.
yeah, it genuinely became like the conversation every time I went to drop off the deposit. And I drink coffee now. It's just my thing. My boss
Oh
keeps
man.
me caffeinated, so I keep working for him.